first to make their landfalls in Canada at the ports of Halifax, Nova Scotia, and St. John, New Brunswick. Although fine deep-water ports, these two oceanfront cities lay hundreds of miles and many hours by train from Quebec City and Montreal, the inland hubs of Canadian commerce, and the points where immigrants from Europe wanted to disembark. By 1914, the Empress of Ireland had proudly flown the checkered red and white banner of the Canadian Pacific Railway for 8 years. Along with her sister ship, the Empress of Britain, the Empress of Ireland had made 95 transatlantic crossings for the giant Canadian Transportation Company without major problems. The two vessels were the pride of the railway line, and the line had much to be proud of. The two identical vessels were the epitome of modern design. The Empress of Britain was launched in 1905, and the Empress of Ireland followed on Saturday, January 27, 1906. Both ships were fittingly referred to as the Empresses of the Atlantic. From stem to stern, each measured 548 feet 9 inches. From port to starboard rail they stretched 65 feet 7 inches. From the keel to the uppermost deck they soared 87 feet. The vessels drew just 27 feet fully laden, a relatively shallow draft ideal for river travel. Their gross register, or carrying capacity, was 14,191 tons, and they displaced 26,000 tons. Two state-of-the-art quadruple expansion reciprocating steam engines cranked out 18,000 horsepower and spun twin propellers. The Empress of Ireland could steam across the seas at an average cruising speed of 18 knots, 21 miles per hour, an astonishing feat for that era. The vessel also had a double bottom that ran from stem to stern, which prevented flooding should she run aground. Twin 200-foot bilge keels projected from the hull below the waterline on each side, reducing the ship's tendency to roll. 10 transverse bulkheads divided the Empress into 11 watertight compartments, making her unsinkable, at least on the drawing board. The helmsman steered the huge vessel by means of a telemotor, a hydraulic mechanism that transmitted the wheel's movement from the bridge to a distant steam engine in the stern through 500 feet of copper piping to operate the rudder. The reliability of the rudder would later be called into question. Compartments 4 and 6 in the middle of the ship were the largest, since they contained the engine room and boiler room. They took up 175 feet of the ship. In case of catastrophe, 32 stewards were assigned to close the horizontally sliding watertight doors. Operating compartment doors was a laborious task under the best of conditions, a design flaw that would prove to be the ship's Achilles heel. The Empress of Ireland could accommodate 300 first-class passengers, 450 second-class, or cabin class, and 800 third-class, all in a style that the Times of London called delightful and cheerful. Although not in the class of White Star's Titanic, Britannic, or Olympic in luxurious trappings, the Empress of Ireland held her own. The first-class rooms, adorned with cherry and mahogany and featuring private baths, were in the ship's airy superstructure of the upper and lower promenade decks. A grand staircase swept down from the promenade decks under a central skylight and spilled into the shelter deck, which housed the spacious first-class dining room. The dining room accommodated families in its snug alcoves, or served large parties in Edwardian splendor at banquet-sized tables. A music room, smoking room, library, open fireplaces, and children's playrooms all were much admired features on the Canadian Pacific ship. First-class trappings were lavish by today's standards and harked back to a time when travelers expected fine craftsmanship in public transportation. If not elegant, second-class accommodations were certainly comfortable and up to snuff for travelers who were more frugal but still relatively well off. Most of the 450 second-class passengers were either businessmen who traveled back and forth between North America and Europe, or middle-class Canadians and Americans traveling on holiday. Berthed in the main and